Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Emma. Today I'm going to actually be doing a video essay for my English 335 Shakespeare class. I will be talking about A Midsummer Night's Dream and one of its adaptations of the same name, which is issue 19 of the Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman. In this video essay, I would like to talk about Gaiman's adaptation and how it convolutes the plot even further, but in a good way, and how it really adds to the play within a play aspect of it, because the layers just get even deeper inside this comic, and I'll tell you how. I feel more official when I hold up the book. So you start off with the four lovers who are in a love square, for lack of a better term, and then you have the fairies who basically just meddle in their lives, and there's more to it than that, but that's like the very basic plot. So you start off with an announced wedding between Theseus and Hippolyta, whose marriage is like forced because he beat her in battle. He's the king of Athens and she's the queen of the Amazon? Oh, he's the Duke of Athens, sorry. And he beat her in battle, so she has to marry him? It's not really explained. Moving on from that, we have the two couples. We have Hermia and Lysander, and we have Helena and Demetrius. Now, Hermia and Lysander love each other, and Hermia's father told her, like, if you don't marry Demetrius, then you'll die. Or go to a nunnery or whatever, convent, however they choose to punish women for not marrying who they want them to marry. So Hermia and Lysander decide to run away together into the forest, and Helena, who's Hermia's best friend, tells Demetrius about it. And then Demetrius goes running after Hermia because he loves her, and Helena goes running after Demetrius because she loves him. And that's how they all end up in the forest. And then there are the fairies, and Puck, who goes by Robin Goodfellow, and then I think he is a hobgoblin. He is asked by the king of fairies, Oberon, to put a little magic flower love potion on Demetrius's eyes so that he will fall in love with Helena. However, Robin Goodfellow didn't know who the hell Demetrius was, and so he put the love potion on Lysander's eyes, and Lysander thus fell in love with Helena, and it was a whole mess. And then they try to fix it. That's kind of it. First, let's get a bit of background on the Sandman comics themselves. Morpheus, also known as the Sandman or Dream, is one of the Endless. The Endless are deities older than gods who represent functions of death, destiny, dream, destruction, despair, desire, and delirium. I was not going to remember all of those. When the comic starts, Morpheus has been held captive, and the world of dreamers is essentially falling apart. As the series goes on, Morpheus attempts to right all of those wrongs that were made, and just kind of slowly fixing everything. In Gaiman's adaptation of A Midsummer Night's Dream, Will Shakespeare was talking with a friend in a tavern about how, like, he wants to be a good writer, and he says, "I would give anything to give men dreams that would live on long after I am dead." Morpheus overhears this and strikes a deal with William. Will have his... Will. That is correct. Will have his plays live on centuries after he has died, and they are still going to be very prominent in culture, which is true. And in exchange, William will have to write 2 plays for Morpheus, and that is how we get A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is the first of the 2 plays that Morpheus has requested. So, let's talk about the differences between the play and the comic. First, the play is set in ancient Athens, and the comic starts on June 23rd of 1593. Knew I was going to try to say 1953. And you start off with Will and his son Hamnet with their like caravan of performers going to a field. So Shakespeare himself is a character in the comics, and Shakespeare plays an integral part in the mythology and texture of Sandman. He is not the most referenced literary figure in the series, But Shakespeare as a character and a cultural symbol carries a significant part of the burden of the series' meditation on the character and meaning of dreams. And when Gaiman talks about dreams, he means both sleeping and waking ones, like wishes. Anyways, they are now in this field and they meet Morpheus, who says the play will take place right in that field. Then when they're just about set up, you see Morpheus open a gate to the fairy realm. And Oberon, also spelled with an A-U instead of an O, and Titania come through to watch the play, as well as what seems like the rest of the fairy realm coming in. So there's a sort of inception happening here, because A Midsummer Night's Dream is originally written by Shakespeare, who's a character in this comic, writing A Midsummer Night's Dream, or having already written it. And inside that play, there's another play. But on top of that, many of the characters in the play are based off of fairies or hobgoblins that Morpheus told Shakespeare to use in his play. And just wait, it only gets more complicated. So Oberon enjoys the play, but complains that it isn't factual and certain things never happened. And Morpheus replies, "Oh, but it is true. Things need not have happened to be true. Tales and dreams are the shadow truths that will endure when mere facts are dust and ashes and forgot." A little bit of an existential crisis there, but it's fine. So while this is sort of a recreation of A Midsummer Night's Dream, it's wildly different from the original play. The play is almost like a secondary plot in this issue. Another plot line is between Shakespeare and his son Hamnet. Hamnet does not feel loved by his father and believes that his father cares more about his plays than he does his own son. And drawing a parallel between the original and the comic, Hamnet actually plays the Indian boy that Titania and Oberon in the play are fighting for. And when the real Titania watches this, she's very intrigued by Hamnet and speaks to him after and tries to persuade him to come over to the fairy realm. The implication is very strong that Hamnet's death is actually a real cause of the fairies taking a child, but with no goblin changeling left in place. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, but also they generally don't steal like 11-year-old children, and so replacing that would be difficult. So in many ways, this issue is more an adaptation of Shakespeare's life than his play. For Gaiman, Shakespeare is a human parallel to Morpheus, an embodiment of something far greater than a single person, the bearer of something vital to humanity, and because of that, a person weighed down and ruled by responsibilities far greater than usual. I'll be honest, as far as similarities go, there aren't many. The fact that A Midsummer Night's Dream, the play by Shakespeare, is played in the comic, that's one of the very few similarities. Another similarity, I guess, could be how some of the stuff that's happening in the play kind of like merges into real life in the Sandman comics, like Titania adoring Hamnet and wanting to take him to the fairy realm and things like that. And now let's talk about my favorite part of this comic, and pretty much my favorite part of the entire A Midsummer Night's Dream play. I absolutely love Puck. He's so mischievous, and I just love it very much. And I love that the play ends with him, and you get kind of a like, were you dreaming? Was this real? Well, I don't know. So what happens in the comic version of this is that Puck, Robin Goodfellow, is watching the play with Titania and Oberon and is like, you know, that man who's playing me, he's doing all right, but I can do better. And so I don't think he kills him, I think he knocks him out. And he basically goes on stage as Robin Goodfellow. And so you do get Puck playing Puck, but like, you weren't supposed to. It's just a little funky, but it's really fun and I like it. And then the comic again ends with Robin Goodfellow saying all of those lines about this was a dream, we shout as we have offended, you know the drill. So I think that is probably one of the biggest similarities that like a technical real Robin Goodfellow is playing Robin Goodfellow, and that he ends the story. It's just really interesting, and I really liked that he did that, because I was kind of hoping the second that a real Robin Goodfellow was introduced, I was like, get up on that stage, dude, you got it. There were also some similarities between the names that were in the play and in the original play. God, this is confusing. And like I said, it's kind of implied that Morpheus gave William Shakespeare like these names to put in the play. So Morpheus had like sort of a knowledge about who was the fairies and goblins and hobgoblins and whatever they are. There aren't a ton of similarities, but I do really like that about this comic. It's kind of fun because it's not a normal adaptation. Let's talk about magical realism. Magical realism is one of both Shakespeare and Neil Gaiman's fortes. Many of Shakespeare's plays have some element of the supernatural in them, and A Midsummer Night's Dream is arguably one of his most fantastical plays. I would say maybe Macbeth because of the witches and Hecate, but I think the fairies play such an important part in here. Anyways, that's not the point. And I have read many of Neil Gaiman's books, and I do not think that a single one of them does not have something magical inside it. And if he has written one that is completely mundane, then I don't want to read it, because he is such a phenomenal writer when it comes to magical realism that I would just keep waiting for like rat people to show up or a star to fall from the sky and start a whole adventure with a guy named Tristan, and I'd be disappointed. Dreams, of course, are an important part of this comic and of the original play, and what better place to have magic than in a dream? Gaiman's point seems to be that imagination and plays are very powerful and not shadows at all. Through Shakespeare's increasing isolation from his brilliance, I guess, Gaiman suggests that dreams, while vital to a worthwhile existence, can easily take the place of reality and make a normal life impossible. Without the magic elements in this play, it would basically be Titus Andronicus, and without the humans, the fairies would be very bored and the plot would still probably go nowhere. It is asserted by a great potent spirit that magical realism attempts to bridge the gap between ancient divinity and modern absurdity. So it just really puts together all the things I love. And this is Elliot, by the way. A theme in A Midsummer Night's Dream that does not have much of a place in the Sandman comics is love. How it is fickle and easy to meddle with and consistently changing. R.W. Dent talked a bit about selective imagination, which I thought was really interesting, and they said Titania was enamored of an ass and knew it, but her selective imagination found beauty in its fair, large ears and sleek, smooth head, even in its voice. Love via imagination transposes to form and dignity by altering the normal evaluation, either in essence or in degree. It is a thoughtful way to look at it, because I always just assumed that she was not fully aware of what was happening, but it makes more sense that is it pollen potion? The magical flower makes the person who has been dosed see the beauty in things and see past the ugliness of an ass. And I just think that's a really cool and interesting way to look at it, and I really enjoyed that. Now let's talk about the importance of this adaptation. First off, the importance to me is just that, as many of you know, if anyone besides my teacher is watching this, I love Neil Gaiman. He's one of my favorite authors. So when this project was assigned to us, I Googled Neil Gaiman Shakespeare, and this is what I found. So that's kind of part of its importance to me, and its general importance, I think, is just that it is not like anything else that happened or that was published at the time. It's a comic that has won many literary awards, which is like not a thing generally. There are graphic novel versions of Shakespeare's plays, but this is like a totally different sort of adaptation, and it's very fun. So it just plays around with that a lot. So the general importance of it, I think, is that it's kind of one of a kind, and it's not something you could really see anywhere else. I think there is also a general importance to the author, Neil Gaiman. William Shakespeare is kind of overwhelmed by his new ability to write fantastically, and he's getting commissions and he has a bunch of stuff to do, and as a result, he's kind of completely ignoring his son. I think Neil Gaiman felt a lot of the pressure that Will did because he was only writing like comics a little bit, and then they just wanted to start pumping them out. And he was getting all of these awards, and so many of his works have been book to movie adaptations. So he's a very busy guy and he's a well-loved author. So I think it's also important to him to kind of just be able to like talk about the pressure that comes with doing something well. The conclusion, my least favorite part, because I could talk forever. I greatly enjoyed this adaptation. I think it's very well done, and it handles the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream and warps it, but still somehow kind of stays true to it. I think Neil Gaiman just did a fantastic job. I highly recommend reading the Sandman comics, although they are very dark and very intense, especially, no, kind of the whole thing, but from the get-go, they're difficult to read, to say the least. I would definitely look up the content warnings on it because I couldn't even name all of them. I think an important part of both of these literary works is the element of magic and how well integrated it is into the story, to the point where pretty much anything is possible and you just go with it. I will say thank you, Dr. Sheely. You were a fantastic teacher, and I cannot wait to have you again next semester. And if this final was like absolute garbage, just pretend it was all a dream. It'll be fine. Thank you guys for anyone else who watched this. I hope you have an amazing time, and I'll see you later. Bye.